we were talking about the wall. And if any of our listeners have any questions about immigration or the wall or any of these issues that we're talking about today, call in because we want to hear from you. These are very important legal issues that we have to deal with. So we're talking about the construction of a wall. That's just like having the Berlin Wall.
I'm sorry to laugh, but
It is. It's just like having.
it's laughable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like having checkpoint Carlos. I'm not trying to be smart about it. We had checkpoint Charlie.
Yes.
Now we're going to have checkpoint Carlos.
And the thing is that, first of all, we have some places where there is a wall, and the wall has not kept construction because it does not work. And many people that are the owners of the states and the border, they know that doesn't work. They don't want to waste their money on that. They want enforcement, but they know that does not work. And now part of the building of the wall is repairing some of the wall that already is there, but because they are fixing it, they think it's a new one. But the important thing is that that is not what is going to work. For people like those 2,000 Hondurans to be coming here, or for Mexicans to come here, to live in the situations that they are, to work 13, 16 hours a day, picking our fruits and building our places and being the construction of the work that some of us do not want to do. It is because it's a real need. And that need is created from the needs that we have here. So they were coming, many of us, they were escaping, but the ones that have been here for so long, it's because the economy, we go back to the economy, because at the end it's all about the economy or money, the ones that stay that are not special laws, like an asylum or something like that. So the wall is really a waste of money, but it satisfies those that somehow we forget where we came from. And all of a sudden there is a fear of people that speak another language or of traditions that we don't know. But I think more than that, it's just like we've been kind of, I don't know, something has been sprayed in the head of some people is the only thing that I can say. But we are just a fear that does not take us anywhere.
Okay, let's break this down a little bit. You continually refer to the language barrier. Almost 40% of the people in the United States speak Spanish.
Hey, I've been here for 33 years. I was born in Puerto Rico with a citizenship. I never experienced a problem. My mom was a citizen. We went to a place and people were looking bad at us because we're speaking Spanish, and we did not experience that before.
So you're stereotyped. That's my point.
We're stereotyping because there is a lack of tolerance for those that don't look like us, and that is based on fear and wrong education. It's like, I do not know where, if we forgot, I will go back, we forgot where we came from. We forgot what the Constitution talks about feeding the poor. And that is because we've been listening to a message that is scary.
But here's the point. 40% of the people in the United States are bilingual and speak Spanish. Is that true?
That is true. And you cannot avoid what the population is going. There's no way to avoid what is already happening. But the 40% now that believe that that group should not be here is in power.
Right. And that's the problem. It's dividing the country again. And that's what the President of the United States is doing. He's dividing the country.
Well, I was talking previously today, something that scares the heck out of me because my children and the grandchildren that I have this is a different version of a civil war, what we have today. Because it's the lack of tolerance that even if you may have a different president, maybe the different president, the anger that is really being fed is going to take a long time for us to recover.
I know. I can't understand how people can argue, and what I'm going to say is an important fact. How people can sit in a coffee shop who are lazy, don't want to go to work, and they can argue because somebody from a different culture has the ingenuity and they're industrious enough to go out and set up a landscape business.
Right.
Because they want to earn a living. They want to support their family. And then when they start to get a truck or a couple of trucks and they start to be a little successful, people start looking down their nose at them because they're industrious.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to survive because they see the opportunity in this country. And they stand up and they want to be citizens and they want that opportunity.
But but it comes from fear. I go back. It's not a general statement. It is. I mean, if we don't have the values, if we are taught fear that you are taking from me, and if you're successful, I don't have, instead of you and I can pull ourselves together and both be successful. So if you have that division, then I have to take you down.
You know,
And
one,
that's what the fear, they have succeeded in that message.
one of my friends is in my house on Christmas. He comes from Nogales, Texas. His name is Carlos. I won't go give you his last name on the air. So he's telling me he was visiting his family in Colorado. And you know, there's a big problem with immigration in Colorado.
Right.
So he said to me, he said he and his cousins got stopped. Two of his cousins are professors at the University of Colorado. And here's Carlos, who is, he has his own maintenance business. So he shows them his driver's license, and they're asking him for more. They want to see his papers.
Right.
He was born in the United States. Just because he speaks a different language, they're putting up barriers now. They're trying to separate people.
I have a friend who is an American citizen husband, but is born in Panama, and she's been here most of her life. And she was driving with her husband, who is an American citizen, and they stopped him and they had him on the side of the road for 45 minutes. They were afraid that they were smuggling some drugs, or he was furious. They called me, "What can I do?" And I said, I don't know, because they probably, you know what the police says now to some of my clients when they follow the car, like I was telling you in 94, oh, that car looks like one that was just stolen in Detroit, and we had to check it out.
Okay, so we're getting back to the same issue.
Yes.
No, I've talked about it on the air. DWB, driving while black. Now it's DW Brown.
Oh, well, Mexican, yes.
And it all has to do with not being of the same cultural background.
Right.
So what we have to do is all the minorities have to get together, and we have to fight against this.
Yes, but I think we have a wave that I do not know. I am doing my part. I know that you are doing your part, and it's one of the reasons that I'm here is just to maybe give people a different kind of view. That is, first they think that it's so easy, that they think that if we allow all these people to be here, maybe because the fear is, they're taking your benefits and they're taking aid from the government, and all those things. The statistics do not back that. Of course, it's like we are attorneys. Somebody spilled coffee in Texas in McDonald's, and everybody thought that they could get I don't know how many millions of dollars. So they find the one case where it's really, really a situation that is not because they were Mexican or Arab or whatever. It was because maybe it was not a good human being, and then they put it and they blow it, and then you are scared the rest of your life because there was that one case that somebody did something wrong.
They don't report in the newspaper that there's a Caucasian who's been picked up for a big drug bust. Either they're African American or Hispanic.
What happened with coming from our neighbor country? That happens every day. They don't say those
No,
cases.
they don't do that.
They don't do that. No, it's just they picked that one case that is just the scandal, the exception. When the numbers are that immigrant population, their crime rate and their behavior is much better than population of the rest of the
Now I'm going to ask you the really tough question.
Uh-oh.
Do you believe that the Immigration Naturalization Service, or Immigration Customs, call it what you want, do you believe that they have some preconceived prejudices towards Latin Americans?
I know many of them, and I cannot say that it's everybody, but I can tell you that it comes from the top. And it comes from the spirit of the orders. And I know some of the agents that are on the street, and they have aged a few years in the last 2 years because they are giving orders of what are the priorities of the government, who they have to pick. And they are human beings like you and I, and they are compassionate. If they find a mom with the children, they don't want to take that child away with the child crying because you're taking the mom. So they are suffering too. It comes from the top. It comes from Washington. Here in Detroit and in all the other countries, Washington is monitoring almost like the portion of how many tickets do you have by the end of the month. That's the way that Washington is micromanaging.
Okay, we're going
Everybody
to break
here.
that down. In other words, like if I'm driving in certain communities in Detroit, they're known for giving tickets because they like to have the revenue coming in.
Right.
And you get up in court and judge says to you, well, thank you for contributing to the economy of this city. I mean, I laugh when that happens. I think it's pretty funny, but they're making a joke out of it. However, the same thing is true in an immigration situation, that there's a quota. And they're trying to keep up to the quota of handling so many
I
cases.
know I'm in TV. Nobody's told me that it's a quota, but I see the waves coming, and I know what they have to enforce. And now I know their pride of what courts or what states are tougher. And I know CBP is a lot tougher than ICE agents or the fugitive division. And I know that we know that now because nobody in the courts told me, because Session had a memorandum telling the judges how many cases they are supposed to be they're resolving per day or per month.
Okay, break this down because it's really important for our listeners to understand. You said
CBP, with Custom Border Patrol.
Custom Border Patrol is tougher.
Those are the white with the green marks in their vehicles that are closer to the border. Now, it used to be 25 miles. They can go a lot deeper right now. And those are the ones that are protecting the line, and those are the tougher ones.
When you say tougher, they're enforcing more of the rules.
Yes.
Okay, so if I'm coming across from Port Huron, coming in from Windsor, and they check me because I speak a foreign language, particularly I speak Spanish, and they're not satisfied with my papers, they're going to detain me.
Well, that's secondary. That's completely different. I'm talking to sometimes they're just driving around 94 or 75. I mean, you get it towards Trenton, you get it towards Port Huron. Some of them can even go a little bit deeper into the miles in Macomb County because they have a lot of discretion. They just wait in the corners like a police that is looking for a trap.
So isn't that racial profiling? Isn't that?
Yeah, I mean, that has been the nature of this beast for a long time, but it seems to be a little bigger. In 2008 and 2009, we got a wave similar to this because actually during the President Obama's administration, enforcement was a big priority, and the word was that he wanted to be tough in terms of enforcement, so maybe a comprehensive immigration reform would be passed, but he gave them the enforcement, and the Congress never went for the reform part. So we have been through wave, but the wave right now is specifically very, very tough.
So why do we need all these immigration laws? What's the benefit of having these immigration laws? Why shouldn't we just open up the borders, allow people to move in? And I want you to answer this when we come back. We're going to take a break.
Thank you.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR Detroit Live.
Okay, so just before we took a break, I was asking you about open borders. Wouldn't we be further ahead if we just opened the border, allowed all these people to come in and work? Because nobody else wants to do their jobs.
You know what? I don't think it's that easy. I wish that easy. I don't believe in open borders like that. I think that any country has the right to have regulations of who comes and how do they come into the country. And I don't think that open border, especially with the situation that we have right now in terms of so many countries in so much need, I the country cannot absorb everybody at once. I think they have to be a system, they have to be some sort of system. I do not believe in the merit system of maybe only people with education or maybe people that are only engineers. I don't believe in that. But I think the right of sovereignty of the country, don't you do have the right to decide who comes into your
Okay, let's
country
break
or
it
not.
down a little bit. Let's assume for the moment that we have open borders, but you have to have certain criteria to come in. In other words, in order to come in, you have to have no criminal record,
Okay,
and you have to have a history of no substance or drug abuse
okay,
or major medical problems that you're coming here for only, and not to become
a liability. Yeah.
right. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, that is reasonable. But also, it still has a big pool of people in that sense. You have to just maybe find, um, and I cannot guess that. I'm out of my expertise in deciding who can or cannot be. But I do believe that the it is a well thought process that we have in order to see who can come. Family base, it has been always the biggest route, a biggest pool of people that can come. But even in family base, there's long ways of who can come. So in order for the country to be able to absorb the new population that is incoming.
Okay, so you have a family-based situation. So I come from Honduras, which is a rough place to come
Hmm.
from, and I'm here for 15 years. I become a citizen. And then I can petition to have my brothers and sisters come, and I can sponsor them, correct?
Yes.
Anything wrong with that?
No, but you know what? First, you got here 15 years. You can be here 15 years and never qualify to become a citizen because you have to have a petition, and in this case, it would be a spouse. You have to have entered legally, so it's almost impossible. But even if you became a citizen in 15 years, it would take about 15 years for your brother or sister to come back.
Really?
Yes. You know how many they talk about anchor babies and anchor babies, all these women that have babies. You know how old does the baby have to be to give any right to the mother? 21.
Okay, well, you got ahead of me on that one.
Yes.
Okay, an anchor baby
Yes.
is a term that's used when a family has a baby that's born in the United States and the parents are not citizens, and the child automatically is a citizen by birthright.
Right. Being born here. Yes.
Right. So the child can stay here, but the parents can be deported.
Right.
But the argument is always made, why should you have the child grow up in an orphanage
Right.
or have someone adopt the child and send the parents back home, correct?
Yes, but they're also saying that these people are here to have babies so they can be petitioned by them, and it's not that easy. The only people that are immediate relative of American citizens is a spouse, a minor child, or a parent. So everybody else, there is numbers and quotas available, and if you are from Latin American countries, the wait is from 10 to 15 years in different classifications. So it's a process that the people that talk about why don't they wait in line, sometimes there is no line. It would be 20 years before a grown-up child of an American citizen can be here in the United States legally. So I think that I say that as an example because it's one of the things that they hear in the radio or read it in the paper and they repeat it without really knowing the system. The other day I was in a place doing my nails, and a lady came and says, why don't they become legal? I just want them to become legal. And it took all the discipline not to engage her because they can't.
Because of the regulations.
Because the regulation. Why don't they pay taxes? They pay taxes. They don't get their refund because they do withdraw taxes from them. So it is a lot of misinformation, but it's a reality of our country, and we are going to have to deal with it because if you're going to deport all these people, the economy will not survive. and if you have to do something for these people to be able to incorporate into.
So how many people, and I'm sure you know this number, you've got a pretty good round number for us, how many people are living in the United States illegally at the present time?
The numbers in the papers, they say it's about 11 million. So I assume there's about 800,000 that are the DACA kids. So if those 800,000 have parents and siblings, maybe sometimes the siblings may have been born here. So you can multiply. It is a big number.
Okay, so the DACA number, those 800,000 who were born here.
No, those are the DACA kids were the ones that came as children.
Okay,
And now
now-
they have the
right,
deferred
okay.
action. Yes.
Okay, so I just want to clear that for
Yes.
everybody. They're not the anchor babies.
No, they are not the anchor babies.
Okay, so that's another group.
Yes.
And you've excluded the anchor babies from the group of
The
those
anchor
who are going to be deported.
Yeah, well, the anchor babies are the ones that I say it because I hear it a lot in the stores, when I go to the grocery stores, when I go into the news. It's like they are coming here to have children. I said, no, they're coming here because they are in need, they are afraid to be killed, and they are contributing to your society. They come here to work, and they think that that child would not give them benefits for years and years and years.
Well, let's assume somebody comes here illegally and Immigration Service comes, and I'll make it real simple, and they say, well, okay, we're going to deport you. And you don't have an asylum issue, so you're going to be deported. Can you ask to go to Canada?
Not from here. They have to go back to their country first. If they've been here for more than 10 years and they have family here, there's a way that I can fight the case sometimes. But in those cases, also there's a number that less than 8% of those cases are won. Because in addition to the time, you have to prove that foreign-born national children or spouse will suffer exceptional, extremely unusual hardship. And unless that child has a special treatment, medical treatment that is not going to be found in their country, they don't care. Those cases are lost.
So you'd have to, God forbid, have an autistic child that needed medical treatment.
You read my mind, yes?
Yeah, and they'd be able to stay in the country.
Right.
But short of having those special needs, they're going to be deported.
They're going to be deported.
And even if the family would suffer financial
Yes.
harm, because the family's done exceptionally well in this country, but unfortunately they don't have the proper papers, then they're all going to have to leave.
Yeah, and then and I have so many examples, but if that dad or mom is reported and is working and is providing and the kid's going to school, they are not taking financial aid. You take that, they're going to be going into the system now to need the state to help and to support them. So we really are working against our own benefit.
Now you're saying that if all of these individuals are deported, 11 million people are deported, it's going to have a significant impact on the economy.
Of course, yes.
And why is that?
There's many numbers that I don't have any studies, because there are 1,100 people that own cars, that have car insurance, that lease, rent, or own homes, that go to the corner store, that send their kids to school, that pay tickets, that go to the doctor, that need an attorney. It's the whole economy. It's taking 11 million people out of your economy that are contributing to the economy. They are paying taxes.
Well, it's a small number, though, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, but take all the immigrant workers from Macomb County or from Grand Rapids. Who is going to pick up the fruits and rent their houses, their communities? In fact, during the worst part time of Detroit right now, when things were so bad, thank goodness it's doing so well now, the Hispanic bloc down on the West Detroit did better than usual because the entrepreneurs and the little stores and the corners. So there is a community with a lot of blood, with a lot of interest to come and contribute. So can they survive without 11 million people? Yeah, I mean, I guess.
And do you think that it's wise? I mean, at the present time, if you go into Southwest Detroit, people want to stay in their own area because they feel that there's going to be some alienation if they move to another area. Now that's not right either, is it?
No, it's not right, but it's happening. I remember when I moved here in 1990, and I will go in Mount Clemens, I will not find a Spanish-speaking person anywhere, or any other, or go to the mall, see any other race that was not white, and that is not the case, thank goodness. So we are growing. There is something that you cannot avoid, because that's the way. Let's go back when we're the Polish or the Italians. I mean, this has happened with different ethnic groups through the times. I remember my daughter had a report in school, and we went to the library to get the history of Ann Arbor. And when I read the people from Ann Arbor, they were the native, and they were complaining of the new people going to Ann Arbor. The story is the same. That is the story of humans. That is the way that we move from one community to the other from the beginning of time, looking for a better life. And that's what enriches this country.
Don't you think that the politicians of this country have deliberately acted in such a way that if you're not American born speaking English, that you don't belong here?
Yeah, but I think that they're in the last hurrah. It's impossible. Look at how many more women are going to be running for election. We had the first senator or rep that had a baby. There is no way. Life will move. You cannot. There is something that I love, meditation. You cannot stop the river.
Okay, let's take a break for a minute. We'll be right back.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Call 1-800-529-8721. That's 1-800-LAW-USA1. And watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. That's Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law. Saturdays at 10 a.m. here on WHPR Detroit Live.
Well, we're back on the air, and I want everyone to know who you are and where your offices are located, because you and I have been having a great time here talking about immigration issues. Tell everybody how we can reach you.
Again, we have two offices. One is in Mount Clemens, our telephone is 586-468-7511, and in Detroit we have 313-841-3300. You can find us in Facebook. It's Miles and Miles PLC. I work with my husband. That's the other Miles in the name. So we've been doing this since 1996.
And you specialize in immigration.
We are exclusively immigration right now.
Now, in terms of immigration, I got a call recently from a group of individuals in Genesee County who have been affected by the lead. Their children have been affected by the lead, and they're not citizens. Do we owe them medical treatment? Do we owe them a place to live? I mean, what I'm trying to say is, are there humanitarian issues?
There's many humanitarian issues, and used to be for in cases of emergency, there would be emergency care for children like that, and many times the medical profession, I have seen many cases where they go out of their way to find funds from contributions and things like that to help for treatment. But the truth is that it is not equal, that they suffer, and many times they don't only suffer because they don't have the resources or the treatment, but they also suffer because sometimes their parents, working the hours that they do, may not have the resources to know what is available to them and to really help. So I am not completely aware, but I think that there's been so much outrage for the situation being so tough that there are so many parts of the community that have tried, but it's overwhelming.
Well, what about deporting these families and their children if they have medical issues?
If the children were born here, it's ridiculous, because I had cases as well. If they are receiving aid from the hospital, or the parents can go and they can stay here and get treatment. Can you believe that? Can you say that a child can be here with their parents to get treatment? What kind of humanity is that? But if the parents have been here more than 10 years and they do need a treatment and you can prove it, that is a case that could be fought, and it's the case that I'm sure our immigration judges will love to help the family.
Okay, so in a typical situation for any of our listeners, if they know a child who's predominantly from south of the border, I hate to say it that way, but that's what I have to say, and they're living here illegally with their parents, they've been here for 10 years, and their medical issues, then they ought to call your office.
Well, they can call my office, but I would love to hear from you, but it's more complicated than that, because the parent cannot apply for relief unless the government puts them in proceedings. So until they really need, because sometimes they're in jail, I cannot just bring the family and just file an application. Which is one of the contradictions. Sometimes many years ago, more than 10 years ago, when you had a family in that much need and somebody, so you can turn him in, say, listen, he qualifies for this, let's turn it in, but immigration doesn't want to take those cases and place them in proceedings anymore.
Okay, this is what I wanted to get to. You do not have business unless somebody is being deported.
Right.
Okay, I don't think
my life is full of trouble.
Right. I mean, the two Hondurans that you talked about that just got picked up, unless somebody picks up the phone and says, look, I've got a problem here. Yeah. One of my relatives or my cousin or nephew or my sister's daughter's husband is being deported, you're not handling cases, are you?
No, not for court. We do have some family-based immigration of people, like a child that is petitioning a parent, or an American citizen that is bringing their fiancé from another country. But so those cases are sweet because they are good, and we know that, like we know the palm of our hands and all that. But most of my cases are litigation, and they are trouble.
Okay, this leads me to the next question. Are these individuals who are being deported entitled to right to counsel?
No, not paid by the government. They have to, sometimes they give them one call when they're arrested. Immigration said, we'll just make one call, but the family has to pay the attorney.
So there's no constitutional guarantees?
No, the Fourth Amendment is just...
Okay.
Although they think it applies. The Constitution says that there are certain rights that apply to all people here. It doesn't matter if they're citizen or not. But as a matter of right, they find a way around it sometimes.
And if they're picked up and unfortunately commit a felony at the same time they're picked up, it's goodbye anyways.
That's goodbye anyway. Or 2 or 3, or drinking related offenses. That is very offensive right now. Yes, there's many things that, although we had a Supreme Court case that came down today, that was a good decision for immigration, because one of the things is the definition of some criminal, what is a crime of violence, it was very broad, and the government can apply it to all kind of ridiculous situation. And the Supreme Court says no, that is too vague, and you have to define it. You cannot just deport people with those all catch all. So some hope.
Okay, what's important to know is if somebody goes into court, for example, and they're an immigrant, and the judge has to ask them now,
Yes, that's a good
okay,
one.
if it has an effect upon
Hmm.
their status if they enter a plea. That's a very important issue, isn't it?
It is, and it's been more active in the last few years. I do not know when Padilla was. It escapes my mind now. But now we receive a lot of calls in my office from criminal attorneys that they've been assigned a case, or they have a case and they know that the person was not born in the United States, or is a card holder, so is a resident, and now they have gotten into criminal trouble. And the interrelation of criminal and immigration is so vital that we work with those attorneys to try to make sure that they know what they're waiving if they have a plea, they know the immigration consequences of the plea.
Okay, the fat cats. Haven't talked to you about this, but I have to talk about the fat cats. These are wealthy foreigners who want to come to the United States and they buy a business.
Okay.
Okay, and they want to run that business here.
Yeah.
They-
I heard that they go to countries sometimes and they try to sell for those fat cats to come here.
Right. They give them special status,
Right.
don't they?
Yes. And that's, money talks. Is
Okay.
it always been the story?
Yeah. Okay, they give them special status. If you invest $500,000 in the corporation in the United States, and you want to come here, and you want your kids to go to school here, and you have a bona fide business, a real business, you can set up shop, can't you?
Yes, you can. Yes.
And you can get
Money opens the door for you. There's no wall there.
Okay, that's the point I wanted to make. This is how rotten the system is. If you got a lot of money, you can come from any country that's not excluded, as long as you haven't committed a crime in that country or a crime in this country, and you spend $500,000 or more, you can come to this country.
Yes. They try to have regulation. There are some communities that have more points than others. It gets very intricate. I can talk to you and appear to be intelligent, but my clients are the ones that we talked about before, so I don't know. But what bothers me is what you said, is that not only is it opens the door that way, but that there is businesses from here that go to other countries when you know that those people have their money to bring them here, almost like a promoter. Come and invest here, and they open the visas. And they give them the cards.
You talk about what's going on. I know a man who's in the housing business who set up an office in Beijing, and he's selling houses in Florida.
Right.
So people are spending all this money, and they're turning them into rental properties to bring their children from Beijing to school in the United States.
Right.
And they get visas.
They do get visas.
Right. And eventually they'll get a green card,
Yes.
won't they?
And the universities and they pay lots of money. Yes, they do. They get all that, and it's not trouble.
Okay. What's the difference? Well, let's talk just for a minute, since our listeners aren't really familiar with this. How do I get a green card?
To get a green card, there's really four main groups. It would be with family, employment, some special laws that you can get into. But family-based is the easiest one. And it's only spouses and parents of they're American citizens that can bring their spouses or minor children to the United States. Those are what we call immediate relatives.
So does Melania Trump's
You had to
mother
do
and
that,
father?
right?
Yeah, I had to do that anyways.
I was waiting.
I know, but I got you. Does Melania Trump's parents, do they have green cards?
I guess that I just saw a picture maybe a month ago that they became citizens. So for Melania's parents to come, Melania became an American citizen after her husband, the president, petitioned her. And she had come here with a visa. There's allegation whether she could work illegally or not. She said no, but we haven't seen papers. We that work in immigration, we think that she did. But anyway, she is an American citizen, then she petitions her parents who became lawful permanent residents. And after 5 years of being a lawful permanent resident, they can become citizens. And that category is one of the categories that the president wants to eliminate. So his in-laws, under the law that he wants to pass, will not be able to be here.
But he's passing that law after he allowed them to immigrate.
Well, sometimes I think that he doesn't even know, that he just says things that are good food for the crowd, and that he doesn't really have an idea of how really it's affecting human beings.
So let me see if I've got this straight. a lot of the immigration issues that have evolved, the president, it's just political with them.
It's completely political. And it began a long time ago. And I think it's part of the division that is felt not only in immigration, but we are seeing it in the culture of war that we have right now. We're seeing within the things that are rising in the black community. We're seeing what is rising regarding the weapons issue. It's just a division that goes right to the core of who we are. And that's what makes me sad.
Yeah, because what we're doing is we're separating society again. We're categorizing and separating society.
Yes.
I mean, Southwest Detroit is a Barrero, and I'm being respectful,
Right.
but it's a haven for Hispanics. Northwest Detroit is another sector of our society. And there's clashes that are existing between these two sections now because someone has created artificial barriers. And in the United States, we're not supposed to have artificial barriers, are we?
No, and this always been there because I think that there is a line that has been there, but there was a sense of civility and pride in being civil and pride of being who we are, that even if you had to believe there were some things that you would not tell outside of your home. And now we're vulgar.
Well, let me take a minute here and tell you a story because it's really interesting. And this is about a man who's passed who was head of the Michigan Civil Rights Commission. His name was Hector Bueno. Hector Bueno was from, South American country. It'll come to me, Ecuador. And he was deputy minister of the Treasury. So he came to the United States. And what happened to Hector Bueno? He couldn't get a job. So he worked in the factory for a short period of time. He got hurt there, and then ended up working in the church. And they discriminated against him. He ended up working for the Civil Rights Commission. He became one of the directors of the Civil Rights Commission. Because it was up here, see? He had all the skill sets.
But don't go that far. Look at me. My first job that was offered to me in 1993 when I was here in Michigan, 3 bars and a master's degree, they offered me $8 an hour.
$8 an hour.
As a clerk, yes.
Incredible.
Yeah, and it's just I said no, thank you very much, and I began on my own, and I knew people, and I worked. So that is part of. I mean, I look at that now and I completely laugh. And I came from working in mass disaster litigation with a plaintiff law firm in Louisiana. So I was proud of where I was. So, and it was because it was different. I was somebody that they did not know, and I think we just have to keep going back. I hate to repeat myself, but we have to go back to who we are.
So what it really boils down to is our current administration is magnifying these issues and separating society.
Yes.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.